used,
foodie scene.
I used to go there for South by all the time, so maybe 4 years, 5 years.
City's got so many more people now that they're all able to
Oh,
get.
that's right. That's right. It sure
It's
has
not just
because
South by.
in the pandemic, everyone moved to Boston. I mean, to Austin.
Yeah, I was like, are we
Yeah,
on Road Trip? That
they
movie, Austin, Massachusetts. Anyway,
they all moved from California to Austin. Everybody.
yeah.
Now
Now
that
reproductive rights.
now that
Maybe we'll
is
turn out the vote. Maybe he'll turn out the vote. Dr. Francine would hold the room on Texas and Arizona women voting. Let's do it.
no. I'm just curious. Now that they're not
Oh,
allowed to
that
have
would be.
abortion, will they
That's
U-turn?
a great idea. Do you want to do that? I'm driving, so I can't even see who I'm talking to. But I would definitely hold a room on that. David,
Yeah.
let's
Later.
do it.
Tech news. Yeah, sure.
Let's
We'll do
absolutely
Karma
do
Club,
it.
but
I
yeah,
think we could do it at Karma Club, not this week, but next week. That would be awesome because
yeah.
I
I'll
think
try to
the
get Ted
whole.
Cruz and Beto as guests. Let's see how far we get.
Oh yeah, sure. But yeah, September 22nd, that's good. The next Karma Club is the 15th. I just checked it out this morning because I'm going to be in Oregon. But the 22nd, I'll be back and we could do it. We could do Arizona, Texas, and the vote. And that would be an amazing room. Amazing.
Okay.
And I could probably get Arizona politicians to come. I mean, not Carrie Lake, but I would want Katie Hobbs, and I could probably get her. Well, I don't know because their schedules are made out so far in advance.
Okay.
We'll
But
take it
yeah,
offline. Thanks, Tyler.
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Tyler, you saw
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
news from Ukraine, how they have recovered 3,400 miles and people are moving in after 6 months, so Ukraine have won a lot, like a huge area in Kharkiv, and Ukrainian are moving back in. So like
Yeah.
good news from you.
Yeah. One of the top headlines on BBC says Russians outnumbered 8-1 in Ukraine offensive. Ukraine's army makes significant territorial gains while Russia hits back with missiles. Because they have missiles, but they are short of people to fight because, as I shared in our little back channel, there was a couple video links that I shared that basically say that they're now referring to this as a war in Russia. One of the biggest notable changes, it's subtle but critically important, is people no longer believe it's a special military operation. They know goddamn well it's a war. And now people don't want to risk their lives they don't want to be in a war with Ukraine, and they're not, even if they do want to be in a war with Ukraine, they're not willing to die for it. And that's why they've run out of people, because the clock has run out on befuddling and confusing the Russians as to what's going on, and the reality has reached the street, and now they realized, oh shit, we're the bad guys, and I'm not gonna let my family members or me myself. I'm not stupid enough to go fight in this. What I now realized, we were lied to, and now they're short and they're embarrassed and they're retreating, and
And they're not
Yeah, so from
and
the
they're not wanting to fight for Putin's dream
Right.
of Russia in the past because
Right.
young people do not believe in
So
that.
from day one, the Ukraine room, the sitrep room, I kept on saying what Russian people think about this war.
Yeah.
Why are they okay with this war? So they were all subjected to a massive misinformation campaign
Right.
that this was just a special operation. And as soon as the truth came out that this is actual war, Putin not only lost his ground, all the people in that room who were saying that Ukraine should give up, don't fight, lay down their weapons, and all the people who were just saying that Russia is too powerful and Ukraine can never win are now, they must look for another job because they were totally wrong in the way they were reading the situation. And of course, not only the truth prevails, but the Ukrainian people fought for their right with their might. They were willing to give up their lives, but not to give up their freedom and tolerate this kind of, brutal, fake, whatever that is. And all the people who were supporting Ukrainians are right now very happy. But the, people who did not understand or were trying to side with the powerful people, thinking that the powerful people will win, are now, kind of saving their face because I'm really happy. And all the people who are supportive of Ukraine are very happy, of course. But this is not just the win for people of Ukraine. It's also the win for democratic systems and also showing what people can do when they stand up for their truth and not let powerful bullies, smear them or, stand in their truth despite of all the misinformation and lies that are going around. So all in all, very, very, good, positive news. I hope this continues.
Yeah.
Aram,
But on the other
I
hand,
agree with you on that. Just real quick, I was going to say I saw two back-to-back headlines that sum up that it's not over yet. One's from the Guardian on Russian strikes with cruise missiles, and then right after that, Xi's meeting with Putin on his first trip outside China since the beginning of COVID.
Mm.
So that's
No, it's not
there's
over
not
yet.
finality.
It's not.
I
No, no.
totally agree with
Nobody's saying.
all of your sentiments. Yeah,
Nobody's saying it's over yet. It's
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
admitting the win that this small country have over such
Sure,
a
sure. I just
superpower.
think they're
That's the
retaliating.
point.
It's an escalation path that I think we should keep our eyes on because
well,
uh,
Well, I said to
22,
keep an
22 consecutive meetings she's had with Putin before, and now his first trip is to go maybe say that their pact is on or to cut the shit out. Which
I,
direction
I don't care
do we
whatever
think
they
it's going to
do.
go?
I don't care
I
whatever
care.
they do. They're not going to find any solace because of all the lies that they spewed from the beginning.
I
When
agree with you. I'm on the
Russians
same page.
themselves will see the truth. That was the main problem. The problem was the war was sold to Russian as internal, just a small operation. As soon
Yeah.
as that truth comes out, from day one, I was asking everybody, why not Russian people know the truth and how can we or anybody over there share the truth with the Russian people. Once they know the truth, they will take it upon themselves because nobody wants to do what Putin was doing. And the problem was that Russians were so subjected to misinformation that they were believing those lies. As soon as the truth comes out and Russian people see the truth, then the war is, in my mind, is over because then they will take care of Putin and everything else.
well, according to the All In podcast, it needs to be over in a month or two because we're going to get into the winter
Yeah.
and Europe will not be able to stand behind us because they will be freezing their butts off.
I'll say this though. I'm obviously very friendly with some of the folks there, and think very highly of them. However, their foreign policy is not their strong suit. um, for example, um,
When you say people there,
yeah.
who do you mean?
Jason.
Uh, let me. I don't want to name
Oh,
names.
you mean the All In podcast guys? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But what
Exactly. You have to see where they're coming from.
yeah, the foreign policy has never been the strong suit of that particular. I mean, when they were covering China, Let me put it this way, with all due respect, and I have incredible respect. The it's I don't think China should be. China's an important topic, and God knows we can't go a single tech news without mentioning it several times. But I think we tend to have a far better grasp and how things have gone based on how we've analyzed things. We're not surprised at all. I think we're unique in our ability, and I think we owe a lot to David Chang and others who came in, and this unique format that we have where we have so many different voices that can share insidery stuff, and the stuff that, and it's not just people on stage, it's people in the room who send in DMs all the time. And on this Ukraine thing, I'll give you another example on that exact point that you bring, Dr. Francine, about what about with winter coming? What about winter with the energy crunch crisis going on? Here's something that is widely not yet understood. The reason the EU has made the rather admirable decision to refuse all Russian oil on their terms. They could buy it if they want to. They're deciding they're not going to. Here's why. This has not been spelled out for the public in the way that it should. Because when the buyer, in this case, predominantly Germany, but it's spread around Europe quite considerably, when the buyer is no longer buying, there's pipelines. These pipelines function in such a way that if you try to reduce the amount too quickly, you get problems. And this happened previously, 15 years ago. And if the buyer stops buying and they have to turn off the pipelines, especially during winter, then you have serious problems. That happened 15 years ago. And now here's what's so amazing about this. To get those pipelines restarted requires domain expertise that is exclusive to the United States. And we came in and helped them restart those oil pipelines. We are not going to help them next time. Those pipelines will be permanently shut down, and they're not going to be able to resell that oil to India because the pipelines will be shut off at the source.
Tyler,
Yes.
I'd like to interject for a second, if I
Go ahead.
can, being somebody in oil and gas. I'm not going to dispute some of the things you've said, but with midstream companies, yes, Russia has relied more on Western oil and gas service companies for help. But what you do need to recognize here, and I think it's important for people not to overlook this, is that they have a really good relationship with OPEC, right? They're part of OPEC Plus. And the Saudis have already invested $500 million into their midstream and gas fields. They did that back in May and June, and they're set to invest more. And so I think people, they don't realize the strength of that relationship and what Iran has been doing this entire time, which has been moving oil out of Iran into Iraq and Oman and moving it out that way. Once you blend oil up with other oil, you don't know what oil it is. And so I suspect that the Saudis and the Emiratis and everyone else in the Gulf nations are going to work incredibly close with Russia and continue to make sure that they have avenues to unload that. They're also going to do production cuts as well. They're also very unhappy with Joe Biden for emptying out the SPR and keeping the price of oil and gas artificially low. We know we can only do that for so long in America, and then we don't have an SPR. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in the background here, but I don't think it's such gloom and doom for Russia. They have been pulling in billions of dollars a month, since the war started. They haven't been hurt economically from their sales of oil and gas, really. And from what I've heard
That
from
is not
experts,
true. Not
from
true.
what I've heard from experts, they'll have like a 5% decrease in production for 2022, which isn't really a whole terribly large amount, especially when prices are being kept up high. When you have high commodity prices, it really doesn't have that much effect. But I just wanted to chime in on that.
Thank you for that, Tom.
Not not
Aaron,
true.
hold on a second. It ultimately, at the moment, boils down to a game of chicken of who's going to blink first. And it is totally possible. It's in the realm of possibility that Europe will blink first, and you'll get protests of people saying "turn on the heat" or whatever. I can tell you this: I am at a beach resort in Thailand, just packed completely full of Europeans all the time, and this is the main topic of conversation. And they seemed, without exception, they seem to be very comfortable and already have accepted the idea fully that they're understand they're going to have frigid showers and cold houses and through the winter, that they're going to bear through an incredibly tough winter.
Well, to be fair, you're talking to the ones that are well off enough to go and spend their winters in a beach
Sure.
resort in Thailand.
Yes, true. So, yeah, that's definitely the biggest development on at the moment is the progress that the Ukrainians seem to be making, and the whole world's watching that, and so we'll keep tabs on that. But did I? Am I'm asking. I'm not. I normally have this facetious question where I say, "Didn't some tech bro come in here and say this?" I genuinely don't know, so I'm not being facetious here when I say, "Didn't some tech bro come in here?" This time, I'm actually asking for real. I'm not being sarcastic or facetious. Didn't a tech bro come in here and say about a month ago that things are going to evolve quickly, or within a month things could change dramatically? uh, I have to try and recall the phrasing. That my point at the time was that the decline of Russia is on the horizon in a way that people don't yet fully realize, and now they are realizing. And that was the point I made a month ago, was that within a month we could see Russia really start to take it in the knees. And I'm wondering if the hardcore daily users like Cheryl and most of the people on stage recall that or not. Did I utter that, or was that purely in my head?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I thought
Yes.
so. Okay, well,
Yep.
see if we can add that to the list. Okay, so the tech news today, we need an air horn. And by the way, we're streaming again. I figured out the streaming problem thanks to Pierre. It had nothing to do with Club Deck. It had to do with the restream.io settings.
Hey,
They totally
Tyler,
screwed
I
it.
just want to mention one before you move on. You remember Pakistan, one third of the country is underwater. Apparently, the pregnant woman and the unborn child dies in the flood hit Pakistan due to lack of medical aid. I think about 650,000 of them.
Yeah, this extreme,
What?
Unfortunate.
the flooding.
Yeah, it's such a sad situation. I do have the link at the top of my profile for a hospital that is doing like a great work over there. But oh my God, the need is so much, and so many people are affected. They lost their homes, bridges, even people cannot get through because the areas are flooded, and then those communicable diseases are affecting children, and it's just very sad.
Okay, here we go. Let's do it. So the top story today is about Nintendo. Who cares? So we'll go to number two. It's Monday, which means it's going to be a slow news day. Number two, Facebook user shares a video of an alleged Meta Quest Pro, the upcoming upgrade to the Oculus Quest, now known as Meta Quest. And the Quest Pro is the one that's coming out just in time for the holidays. And so a Facebook user shared a video of the new Meta Quest Pro VR headset, claiming that Meta left the device with a label on it that reads "engineering sample in a hotel room." I'm calling complete bullshit on this. This is classic guerrilla marketing. As somebody who participated in the earliest days of guerrilla marketing, before it was even called guerrilla marketing, with Shepard Fairey, the Obey Giant team, and whatnot, this reeks of guerrilla marketing. So, yeah, no
What is
one's
this, like the iPhone 4 all over again?
precisely. Well, the iPhone 4 one, when the bar where it was left in Palo Alto, as I recall, handed over to Steve Jobs' reaction tells me that that was an honest mistake. That somebody left their iPhone 4 at a bar, and he was none too happy about that. And he, by the way, to give a little more evidence to that point. For those who don't recall, I recall very vividly when the iPhone 4 was coming out. This is back in the day when people used to go berserk about the iPhone upgrades that were coming out each year, and this is on the heels of the 3S. We're going into the 4. Somebody at a bar found a 4 before they were released, quite a ways before it was released, several months, and gave it to Gizmodo. Brian Lamb was editor at the time, and Gizmodo ran the story about it, and Steve went berserk in a way that Steve is. Many people who know him well would warn you not to get on the dark side of Steve in this way. And he went scorched earth on Gizmodo and swore to never, for the history, for all eternity, Apple and Gizmodo will never be friends. And that seems to be true to this day, by the way. Like, they're still paying the price for that. Gizmodo is. So he ran one story that potentially had very long-term consequences. Anyway, so I feel like the reaction that Steve had tells me that was not a guerrilla campaign. He was so vividly upset about it that I feel that I tend to think that it was sincerely a mistake. So, but this Quest VR headset, now I appreciate that somebody brought that example up, because let's see what Facebook's reaction to this is, and to that person, and how they respond will tell us a lot about whether this is a guerrilla campaign, or if it was, if somebody gets fired and they're named for being fired, then I'll believe that it was a mistake. Because I would expect that would be the kind of consequence of somebody with a level of responsibility doing something that stupid. So the next story is that Starbucks announces something called the Starbucks Odyssey, a loyalty program, of which they already have a rather robust loyalty program. But this is a loyalty program and an NFT community, because you want to be in a community with all the other latte soy chai drinkers, right? Built on the Polygon blockchain, launching broadly sometime in 2023. Starbucks is today officially introducing Starbucks Odyssey, launching later this year, the coffee chain's first foray into building with Web3 technology. What's Starbucks going to do with Web3? I'm not sure. Nobody knows. Adam Brotman's still running it. Okay, so Adam, I happen to know a bit, because I had a startup company and I used to discuss it with Adam. And Adam's a smart, geeky dude, has been for a long time. This is right in his wheelhouse. I assumed he was the person internally behind this. He was the guy who built Starbucks' mobile app. That is, quite a substantial part of Starbucks today. And the article says, to develop the project, they brought in Adam Brotman, and the architect of the mobile order and pay system and the Starbucks app, to help serve as a special advisor. Now the founder of Forum 3, a Web3 loyalty startup, Brotman's team worked on Starbucks Odyssey alongside Seattle Coffee Chain's own making loyalty and technology teams. Now there's a conflict of interest, because Adam has, after he left Starbucks, I'm trying to remember where he went. I'll have to look on his LinkedIn. But at this point, he's at some Web3 startup, and now he's trying to get Starbucks to be the big anchor flagship client for this Web3 loyalty thing that he should know that they would like or not. But he, again, has a bit of a conflict of interest. So it'd be interesting to see if Starbucks is able to make something out of Web3. Certainly the whole Web3 community, of which that's more of a real thing than a Starbucks community, I think everyone would agree. Is Starbucks going to be the messiah that actually brings some legitimate mass scale use case for Uncle Joe and Aunt Betty to use Web3? To, their Starbucks stars will now be on the blockchain? Or is there something more clever afoot? I'm eager to find out, as a Starbucks addict myself. So it says, to engage with the Starbucks Odyssey experience, Starbucks Rewards members will log into the web app using their existing loyalty program credentials. Okay, well, they're off to a good start. They're not forcing you to make a new account. once there, they'll be able to engage with various activities. And these are precisely the activities that we want to know about. Starbucks calls them journeys. Okay, I'm getting worried already. Like playing interactive games or taking on challenges designed to deepen their knowledge of the Starbucks brand or coffee in general. And that clicking sound you hear is me shorting and selling my Starbucks stock. This sounds like a very old person's idea of what young people are looking to do. And I don't think those usually go the way that the older people had hoped. Additionally, a set of limited edition NFTs will be available to purchase in the Starbucks Odyssey web app, which also works on mobile devices hosted on the Polygon blockchain. These NFTs will be bought using a credit or debit card. And here's where Starbucks might play to one of its strengths, which is what's called leakage or breakage, where, and Adam deserves a lot of credit for this, people like myself have left $50 on my Starbucks Gold card for the 10 years I've been living in Asia, for example. And it's still there. And I just found out because I just went back to the States last week and to find out that my Starbucks Gold card still had $50 on it. And Starbucks has been sitting on that $50, and there's millions of people like that, and they've probably got billions of dollars that they're just sitting on that people don't realize, they left on their Starbucks cards. So if they can cajole people into, making these small NFT purchases that they later forget about or whatever, that we'll see. We'll see what Starbucks cooks up of this. But calling them journeys and teaching them about the finer details of the history of Starbucks, which anyone who's actually a fan of Starbucks like myself knows rather very well anyways, as a longtime shareholder, and very happily so. Anyway, this sounds ridiculous if you're asking me as a Starbucks legacy shareholder. This sounds ridiculous. And reeks of nepotism. I'll even go that far.
So, Tyler, can I
yeah,
chime in for just 2
sure, go ahead.
seconds? So, having watched this space for the last year or so, I think it's just a natural evolution, I'll be honest with you, because with NFTs in general in the art world, I think people are trying to understand exactly what they're getting when, it's like, it's a digital piece of art. Is it the actual art? And then, everyone started bringing up the term utility. I don't think anybody really understood what that meant and what that was supposed to actually provide them. By Starbucks getting in and being the large brand that it is, globally, the idea that they're creating this or tokenizing their memberships with NFTs crosses that boundary. It allows that discussion to start happening, like, oh, you mean I can actually get something physical in the real world? And hopefully the education at least kind of starts to happen a little bit more for the everyday person.
Okay,
But again, I completely agree with you that
I got you.
we're not there.
If members are the only ones who, if you have to buy an NFT to get the bathroom code, then I'm on board. Then this is genius.
Sorry, you just made me laugh. Yeah. It's the same thing we've been doing with these apps we've all had for years and years and years. It's just going to be a different way. The question is if they're going to ask people to like create a wallet, a MetaMask wallet, or connect that's just going to be a barrier to entry that I don't even want to see happen, because I myself have my own issues with it. So, but it'll be interesting to see if we at least, I don't know, progress down the road of educating people about, this new world or this new paradigm shift. It'll
Yeah,
just be interesting.
fair enough. Next up, Reuters says they have sources that the U.S. government plans more curbs on U.S. shipments to China. Say what? Of chip making tools and chips for AI, affecting Lam Research and Applied Materials. They're out of Sunnyvale down there in the San Jose area. And others. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It's almost like the U.S. doesn't want China to get chips. Why hasn't anyone been talking about this? Oh, wait a minute. Didn't some balding tech bro come in here like a week or two ago and say very plain as day that this entire thing, this whole enchilada, is all about stopping China from getting chips to progress beyond 2022 technologically. I recall some, maybe I'm crazy, but I know I'm not, because I was the person who said that a week or two ago. And here it is now on the front page of Reuters saying they've got sources. Well, it wasn't me, I can assure you of that. But I could have told them this. In fact, maybe they're listening to Tech News, where I went on a long rant about exactly this. This is exactly what's going on, and it is going to get bigger and broader, way beyond Nvidia and whoever the other AI chip manufacturer that got tapped on the shoulder by Uncle Sam to say you can no longer sell chips to China, and now Lam Research and Applied Materials. And by the way, everyone's going to get tapped on the shoulder saying, hey, you can no longer sell chips to China. You know why? Because this whole big thing is about the fact that we're decoupling from China, and we're going to kneecap them and prevent them from growing past September 2022. They're going to be frozen in time like Cuba was in 56. And that's why they're driving around in those beautifully antique old cars that they have there, because they got frozen in time because they fucked with Uncle Sam. And when you fuck with Uncle Sam, we're going to fuck you back 10,000 times harder, and you'll be driving around 1956 cars till the year 2057.
Huh.
Don't fuck with Uncle Sam. When you really piss us off, you're going to get frozen in fucking time, and that's exactly what's happening to China right now. They should take a flight to Havana and go ask the Cubans what the fuck happens when you try to fuck with Uncle Sam.
Because when they stole all the HR records, a lot happened to them then. Right?
Here's the issue.
I'm just saying that that's not how they're getting their information, anyways. They're just going to steal it and
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
there's
enough. They've
steal
had.
chip designs and do it themselves.
They will try to do that, and they've been trying to do that for a while. The
Yeah, they've
U.S.
been trying
Well,
not
they're
succeed.
very successful.
Yeah,
And if they do it,
they've been
it will just
they've made good progress. The U.S. has wisened up to the fun and game and antics of Uncle G and his crew, and there's been an impressive effort within the U.S. and its allies to have incredible security to protect chips from potentially getting into the hands of China. The intellectual property behind the chip.
So with Nvidia, we saw the stock price go down, but we know apparently when Uncle Sam taps these people on the shoulder, there's also some money tied to that.
Yeah,
So what, they're not just going to let them flounder. Obviously, they just passed this huge bill called the CHIPS bill, right? So
exactly right.
what's the future of these stocks? They're all going to take hits and then slowly go back up because the government money shows up and the American public realize the government's backing all this.
Yeah, I love the way you phrase this, because you just exposed why the Chips Act was really done. It's 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 thank you money for not doing business with China. We needed to pass this massive sack of funding to be able to carry the companies that we know we're going to have to tell they can no longer do business with China anymore.
That was my exact thoughts when all this
Yeah,
was going down.
yeah,
I have a political science degree. I follow this stuff, and I just thought this to me, because I saw Nvidia's stock price go down, and all these lawmakers are holding Nvidia and stuff, and it's like, what's really going on here? Oh yeah, no, there's going to be just endless bailouts. They're going to tell them get out of China, get out of certain markets, and really, it's kind of poking the bear for China just to walk into Taiwan. So are they purposely trying to make a hot
yeah.
situation hotter? Like I don't. I mean, but that's what's going to happen to me.
That's what
I
some
think.
tech bro came in here every day for the past year, and well, on that issue once a month. This very handsome elderly aging tech bro used to come in here about once a month, and going back a few months, and was predicting precisely that. And
Well, him and I, it looks like we see eye to eye.
yeah, it's getting more obvious as time goes on. Just similar with Ukraine, by the way, how that whole game's playing out. It gets easier as we get into the later stages. Yeah, there's definitely some panda poking going on. That's becoming obvious. Okay. Next up, researchers discover a strain of Linuxware malware that uses polymorphic encoding and uses legitimate cloud services to infect servers and IoT devices. That's actually quite concerning. With polymorphic encoding and multi-stage infection chain, this would make it incredibly difficult to detect. And it's called Shikitega. Shikitega, is that, Cheryl? That would be some really advanced Japanese, if it's even Japanese. Shikitega, it has a Japanese sound to it. I don't know what that would mean, though.
Okay, let me take a look.
Yeah, Shikitega. What an interesting name. New stealthy malware targeting Linux. Huh.
Yeah, you're right. Shikitega.
Yeah, Shikitega. It's just clearly Japanese, and it's even Shiki is Japanese. So it all comes out. I don't. It's a complex word that I don't know what that would mean, and I can't even imagine what the kanji would be. Anyway, at the Code conference, CEOs and politicians voiced concerns about TikTok's power, rapid growth, and surveillance potential, as some called for the app to be banned altogether. And this is starting to pick up steam. But this article, which Cheryl, I assume, is going to pin here at the top of the room shortly. And by the way, I think there was a tech bro who predicted that this was going to start happening about a month ago. I recall some handsome, balding white tech bro came in here and said that the TikTok wrath is going to ramp up a bit. And how interesting how that the Code conference was a catalyst where you get all those people in that room together and they all realize they're on the same page. TikTok wasn't even at the event. And this caused Taylor Lorenz to take to Twitter to say, this is all bullshit. There's no evidence of TikTok doing anything wrong at all, which is really interesting to me. Because Taylor, if you might recall, if you've been following us daily, was the one who was writing Kissy Kissy's TikTok is so awesome in school article at precisely at the same time when schools were shutting down their bathrooms and shutting down the schools entirely because the teachers were being assaulted and the bathrooms were being destroyed at such a scale that there were dozens and dozens and dozens of schools being shut down. And at that same moment, she was writing a piece that was a straight up sloppy wet kiss for how TikTok is so helpful in schools, if you can believe that. Now, I would respond to Taylor's suggestion that this is all poppycock by just positing the very obvious that it's very well known and accepted that the CCP has utilized Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms to achieve their aims and cause social discord in the U.S. This is widely known and accepted. In fact, Paul Moser at the New York Times wrote an incredibly detailed piece on precisely how they do it, where she used to work. She no longer is at the New York Times. Anyway, but Paul Moser is actually one of the people at the New York Times who still deserves rather unlimited carte blanche respect. He's yet to do anything that I can detect as being way off base. I think his work is fantastic, and I am, how critical I am of the New York Times. Paul Moser is a unique exception. He does incredible work there at the New York Times, and has for a very long time. He happens to be based in China until China kicked out all of the journalists out of mainland China and forced them to camp in Hong Kong. So, he was one of the folks who also reported on the Uyghur camps and tried to go out there and had a confrontation, and they forced you away. And they don't like people doing this nasty business of journalism in their backyard. So I think the world of Paul Moser, and he wrote a detailed piece with a couple of other New York Times writers about precisely, and you can Google the headline, precisely how the CCP uses Facebook and Twitter and social media to cause social unrest in the US. And it showed precisely how they did it, where the funds came from, exactly the playbook. Rather lengthy piece. Brilliant, brilliant piece that should get, rewarded or awarded. Anyway, that accepted. Nobody disputes that piece that he wrote, or the dozens of other pieces that other people wrote about the same point, or Facebook's own internal teams or Twitter's own internal teams when they say we just shut down another 100,000 CCP bots. Right? No one disputes that. There's no reason to dispute it. Why would you dispute Twitter when they say they shut down 100,000 bots that are attributed to the CCP? You don't need to dispute that. They have no reason to make that up. It makes them look kind of bad that they even had to do that. So, that aside, are you telling me, Taylor, that the CCP is creating hundreds of thousands of fake accounts on all the other social media platforms to spread disinformation in the US, but they're not doing it on the one app that they fucking control? Are you stupid? How stupid are you that you can't put one and one together like that? That is the easiest puzzle piece connection, dot connection example I can imagine. It doesn't get easier than that. How do you
Yeah,
not understand?
I was going to say, let's just cut to the chase. How much is she getting paid by TikTok or
That's
by outs?
I
You know,
literally wonder that. I literally am suspect that she's actually financially compromised in this somehow. Why is she even defending this? It's really weird. Anyway, and that's why I said it's so suspicious that she's the one that's responding to this. Everyone saying this at the code conference. Oh no, there's no proof of this. Who are you to try and defend the CEOs at these tech companies? I bet these CEOs at the competitors of TikTok might know a little bit more of the inner workings of TikTok than Taylor Lorenz. Just a hunch. Call it a hunch. Binance-linked crypto exchange Wazir X says that India's enforcement directorate has unfrozen or restarted its bank account. Okay, that's great for them. Next, a report that ransomware gangs are using intermittent encryption, where files are partially encrypted, to evade detection tools looking for intense file I/O operations. A growing number of ransomware groups are adopting a new tactic that helps them encrypt their victims' systems faster while reducing detection. Okay, great. Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game. It never ends. And I guess that's the big lesson that everyone needs to absorb once and for all. And this really needs to become a mass accepted, mass adopted understanding or realization, which is that there's no finish to this game. It's ever going. It is an ever evolving cat and mouse game that by design will never ever end. It's spy versus spy, or whatever you want to call it. One side makes progress, the other side has to catch up, and vice versa, and up and up and up and up and up. It just keeps going forever. So just accept that reality. That's just the reality of cybersecurity from the macro level. Next, from Bloomberg, they said they've done analysis that Amazon is projected to spend $15 billion or so on programming, including, and they mean content, including sports, ahead of Netflix's 13.6 billion and Disney's 9.5 billion and Apple's 6 billion. So Amazon's got deeper pockets than the other players, the other horses in this big race for content subscription services, which is not a surprise because God knows they got more, they have more money than all of them other than Apple. Apple could spend a lot more if they wanted to. And Amazon's really committed to this because ultimately Amazon needs Amazon Prime. They see it to be in competition with Netflix because they both offer content, and they need you in Prime because Prime's going to evolve into all kinds of other things other than getting free shipping and content and competing with Spotify and all the other video content streamers. It's also, in the not so distant future, going to be healthcare. And healthcare will be one of the additional benefits to being an Amazon Prime member. And then they're going to take over healthcare in America writ large. That's a tech bro, a balding aging tech bro telling you that now. You can go ahead and timestamp this one, September 12th, so that when in some future date when I might try to circle back and ask, did some tech bro tell us that Amazon's going to bundle health insurance with Amazon Prime membership and take over healthcare in America? Then we can recall September 12th. Thank you. So the next one is from Bloomberg. I'll look at something called Aleria, founded by Google veterans to develop high-speed network to connect satellites, boats, and more using laser beams, building on the Loon moonshot. And for those who don't remember the Loon moonshot, this was Google's kind of special project where they were launching balloons to provide connectivity to parts of the world that didn't have connectivity, which now looks abundantly ridiculous with now that SpaceX has done Starlink. So Loon is no longer happening, and so this is the continuation, back to the drawing board for Loon, and now they're developing a high-speed network to connect satellites and boats. By the way, Starlink just announced they have their own new boat version of Starlink, by the way. It's kind of hard to compete when you don't control the satellites, ultimately. The next one, Twitter rejects.
Actually, Tyler,
Yes.
Starlink just launched their new array satellite, which is much larger with huge
Yes.
antennas to improve the
Yes.
connectivity with.
And Elon has been rather vocal about how the next generation will be laser based and will improve
Yeah.
speeds and reduce lag and eventually reduce cost and everything else. Great, fantastic. Good luck competing with him on this. So the next one is from CNBC. Twitter rejects Elon Musk's claim that a $7.75 million severance payment to Peter Zatko violated the acquisition deal ahead of a shareholders vote on September 13th, which is tomorrow. So preemptively, Elon's claiming that the severance package of nearly $8 million in some way violates the terms of the acquisition deal. And long story short, Twitter is rejecting Elon's claims. Okay, well, yeah, of course they're going to reject some claim that would violate the acquisition. That's hardly a surprise at all. The question is, what does the court think? So we'll stay tuned to find out. The next
And
is
and recently, Elon got swarmed by Twitter bots on one of his tweets.
next up from Vox, a look at concerns for women at Launch House, an A16Z backed startup promising community to young tech founders, such as sexual assault and lack of security. The people here are young and friendly and full of hope. Why shouldn't they be? And so somebody got sexually assaulted at the Launch House in Beverly Hills. The people here, the Launch House promises young tech founders community. For 1 month, they get to live in a mansion in Beverly Hills, one where Paris Hilton used to live, with precious little overlooking with a precious little pergola overlooking $1 million view of Los Angeles next to a pool, surrounded by swans and whatever. This mansion is the home of Launch House, which is both an incubator for startup founders and a social club. Is this, Dr. Francine, is this not Brett's? Did Francine jump out? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, she's not here at the moment.
Okay. Is this the same Launch House that, is it Brett Goldstein? What was his name? There was a guy who used to come in here in Clubhouse quite a lot. Yeah, Brett Goldstein. There it is. Launch House Brett Goldstein, co-founder and managing partner of Launch House. So I've been in a few Clubhouse rooms with Brett when Clubhouse was just getting started. And Brett seemed like a very lovely guy with a very fun idea around launch houses, which is kind of like getting a big mansion in LA, where he happens to be, and let people innovate there and eventually launch stuff there. And yeah, so
Silicon Valley, the TV show.
yeah, kind of begs for a TV show deal, which maybe he might have been thinking in the back of his mind. Anyway, so if you get a bunch of young guys and girls there, and if there happens to be alcohol there, watch out. that's a recipe because there's these things called hormones, and when you put alcohol in the mix, um, yeah. Well, I don't know what happened, but the way this story is presenting itself, it's that somebody got sexually assaulted, and now the question is, who bears responsibility, as usual. Certainly not the assaulter. No, no, it would be the venue, of course, right? Like when women get assaulted at nightclubs, of course, we question why this bar exists, right? So uh, I think part of Launch House's problem in this case, the PR nightmare in this case, is that they brand themselves as a startup, and that was their big mistake because every journalist knows if there's any reason at all to attack a tech startup, you go for the jugular, and that's what they're doing in this piece. I wonder to what degree they even hold the attacker responsible. I'm trying to scan this here. Launch House's pitch is that by networking and bonding in extremely close quarters for 4 weeks, its members will learn skills and make connections that are far more valuable for their careers than what a traditional college degree provides. Okay. And then it says another trend swept the tech world around the same time as Launch House was taking off. According to devotees, the Web3 space, the young entrepreneurs. Cheryl has it pinned at the top of the room if you want to do a deep dive. I'm just trying to scan it to find out exactly what went wrong here. It's a
Whatever
very
it
long
is, I
piece.
think they're charging founders either 1,000 or 3,000. I thought this is against you and Jason's ethos.
They're providing some serious value though if you're living there. Yeah, if you want to live in a Beverly Hills mansion, that's going to cost $1,000 or $2,000.
No, I think there's a membership on top of that, or whatever payment they have to make to live there.
There's legitimate value in bringing a lot of founders together with mentors. In fact, it would be kind of rare that they don't charge something, and maybe they don't have to charge cash, but it's very common that you would charge equity. So, for example, you get a group of 30 founders together, and then you bring in 15 or 20 mentors, and on every Friday night, we're going to get together, have some drinks and some pizza, network, and every week for 20 weeks, we're going to have a different mentor come in and mentor us on 20 different topics, like how to pitch investors, or how to do marketing, how to do customer acquisition, how to balance your do the finances, and how to hire, how to build a team, all of this jazz. That's actually very helpful, and these things exist, and startups pay somewhere between, it's usually done in equity, a few percentage points and as high as 10. And if it goes above 10, that's when I would start, me or Jason would be like, hang on, hold on a second, right? I'd say actually even 15 might be like the real higher limit for that kind of a thing. And
Okay.
although there are people who go even much higher than that, by the way.
So
But
two
these
types
things
of
are,
payment.
yeah, these I don't really have a problem with that. And I don't think the journalist in this case does either. I don't think that's the issue they're trying to raise. It's based on the headline, and this could be just an incredibly elaborate clickbait article, because I'm having a very difficult time finding what the real smoke is in this fire.
Web3 projects. Yeah. I'm trying to glance through now.
It's kind of like an MBA program that's for executives that only meets every other weekend for a year, except they don't have the infrastructure of the university to deal with sexual assault complaints.
If someone could
Instead of
take
Me Too, they're in Me Oh Node.
1 second. Okay, I just searched the document for the word sex, hoping to find any word with the word sex in it, like sexual assault, and here now I found there's 9 instances of the letters sex, and the first one is each member is encouraged to share the most difficult experience of their lives, including sexual assaults. Okay, so that's not Nobody got sexually assaulted there. And then you have to scroll nearly towards the end of the article, and it says Jessica eventually went to the hospital for a sexual assault forensic exam and decided to spend the next few days at a hotel to process what had happened. So here it is. Police came to the house twice that night for noise violations, according to Beverly Hills Police Department records obtained by Vox, and found about 200 cars parked outside on a dead-end road. Okay, so this is clearly a lot of people way above and beyond the members of the house. They decided to throw a big old block party, right? And when you get to the point where you got 200 cars, you're talking 500 people in a house, in a big mansion in Beverly Hills. At that point, you don't have control of who's at the party. You have complete, you have people there who have, it's kind of, you're on a buyer beware. There's no accountability for who's at this party anymore. You are essentially at a bus station at this point, right? So there's 200 cars parked at the end of the dead road. The morning after, rumors began to swirl. Someone saw someone with tattoos tied to the gang MS-13. Right. Sure enough, you're at a Greyhound bus station. You have Mexican cartel drug members, gang members at the party now, right? Thank you for proving my point. A content creator got jumped and taken to the hospital. Yes, again, you're at a Greyhound bus station. People are going to get jumped because you've just waved a big welcome flag to everybody who's anybody to come hang out at this Beverly Hills mansion and steal whatever catering is going on. Another fight broke out, it says. Okay, great, yeah. How could you make this more like a Greyhound bus station at this point, other than having Greyhound buses at this fucking party? You've turned this is not a party. This is a gathering of miscreants. You've created your own bus depot minus the buses. Okay, great. So Jessica woke up. Attendees described the frenzied scene and a company unprepared to manage it. Yes, exactly right. That's exactly what happened. When Jessica woke up the next morning, she, along with several other women who had attended the party, was pretty sure she'd been roofied. She only remembered taking 3 shots, not nearly enough to black out for her tall frame, but woke up in the bed without her tampon in and without knowing how or when it had been removed or how she'd gotten upstairs. Other people at the party also reported instances of blacking out due to suspected drugging, noting how weak the security had been, how none of the bedrooms had been locked, how essentially anyone could walk through the door at any time, as they did, meaning people did do that. Multiple people. How did I guess that before reading the article? Multiple people reported seeing groups of partygoers enter the bedroom where Jessica was passed out. Onlookers presumed they were en route to the attached bedroom to do cocaine. Now, the only thing short is the Greyhound buses and methamphetamines. Jessica eventually went to the hospital for sexual assault, forensic exam, and decided to spend the next few days at a hotel to process what happened. In the meantime, the police came to the house again as part of an investigation into an alleged assault with a deadly weapon, according to records. A member who was at the house that evening saw the police flipping through CCTV footage from the property and said everything was tense. Said one member, "We couldn't get any straight answers from the founders. We were told that police were coming and to just keep going about our day and not talk to them if they asked us anything." Right, because that's what your lawyers would tell you to do. By the way, any good lawyer would tell you to do. If you have any decent lawyer in that situation, they would tell you the police are going to come, they'll probably ask a lot of questions, refuse to answer all questions. And the founders had that conversation with their lawyers, and they passed that on to all the House members and said, do not discuss any details with the police whatsoever. It's only negative. It can only hurt you if you answer their questions. It cannot help you in any way, what shape or form. It can, from a legal perspective, and I'm sure Jennifer will back me up on this, can only hurt you in this case. So
Francine
that's not
is here, by the way.
Okay, good. So that's not exactly a negative on the founders that they said that in the way that this article would likely want you to believe. Anyway, so now we understand what happened. It isn't what the headline led us to assume that a male member of this house, you know, sexually assaulted a female member of the house. No, they turned the house into Grand Central Station for a night,
Dodgy
and
house.
gang members from Mexican cartels and meth addicts from all around decided to come in and went berserk. And in that scenario, who's responsible for the safety of you, the party goer? And the problem, I think Europeans are going to answer this question very differently than Americans. The Germans are going to say, you're responsible for what you consume. And if you're around people you don't know, like any bar in the world, you need to be very careful with what you're drinking around strangers. And that's going to be the very, uh, the one end of the spectrum of answers, represented by stereotypically, Europeans. And on the other end, you will have Californians, or maybe I'll use Portland as the other end of the extreme, where they say, the house is a safe space, and you came in and you violated the safe space, and but ultimately, where on that spectrum are we going to decide who's responsible for the well-being of the attendees of this party? Do we hold venues responsible for the well-being of the attendees? I'm not aware of another example where a venue was held responsible for the safety of attendees, other than the Amazon warehouse that collapsed during a hurricane. Anyway, it's terrible. Obviously, the bastard who did this deserves to rot, and my heart goes out to the young lady. That's tragic. Um, I don't I don't know how much fault you can put on the house.
I mean, we
So,
saw this with a concert in Houston, where that's a concert venue, and well, I forgot the name of the rapper here, the local rapper, but they had a lot of people that were trampled. I think some
oh,
people
that's right.
died.
Yeah,
Yeah, the venue, right? But that's maybe a little bit different because it's a concert. There's hundreds of people there. I don't know if you can apply the same logic to this type of
right.
situation.
Well, if an artist had been performing at this party, would the artist be in any way responsible? And so, Dr. Francine, this is about the launch house, Brett Goldstein's thing in Hollywood, threw a huge party. Uh, a young lady got, and it turned into a crazy party. The article says 200 cars were parked there. So I calculate that to be 400 people plus. And the article is insinuating that, this is all on the heads of the launch house for not providing safety for its members. Launch House promised young tech founders community. A Vox investigation found out what happens when clout and cash are paramount in protecting members falls by the wayside. So it was the greed. It was these money grubbing greedy dudes who didn't give a shit if their female participants got raped due to their greed. Come
This
on.
sounds like a fraternity house almost kind of situation, but there wasn't any kind of insurance policies or anything thought
It's
out
it's
on
actually, it's
this.
actually quite different because it's not fraternity and sorority parties are not open to the public.
Oh, this was open to the public. Wow. Okay.
That well, there were. This is my point. When you have a huge Beverly Hills mansion, as somebody who's been to a ridiculous number of Hollywood Hills and Beverly Hills mansion parties, I never knew who was throwing these things 90% of the time. I didn't know whose house it was.
Yeah, for insurance policies, we always had guest list and provided security. We did certain things to make sure if we had problems, we'd be insured.
Now you're sounding very European. Which, by the way, don't get me started on alcohol sales in Sweden, where you can't have an event without knowing everyone who's there.
Yeah.
So, um, that's a kind of that's a rough headline. Failure to launch. That's kind of clever. Launch House promised young tech founders community, and they found out what happens when clout and cash are paramount. Protecting members falls by the wayside.
But Tyler, this mansion is the home of Launch House, right? It's not a random party venue.
It's not a party venue, nor
Yeah, it's not a
ordinarily.
party venue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But if they say we're gonna have a huge open, it depends on what they said. And if you're there and you feel uncomfortable, what if this? Don't get me started. That's
I think
not a
there's
tech.
probably a homeowner's insurance policy there that's applicable, I imagine, and they'll go after that. I'm certain. Just it's probably 25,000 or 50. Who knows how much it is? You know.
Oh, that's like that Uber lawsuit, right? That
Yes,
one,
yes. The lady
Uber,
who got
the
raped in an Uber. Yeah, she's suing Uber. The to me, the issue with this article is that it's a journalist uh, going after a startup who's doing this launch house thing, and it's just a default knee jerk approach to this incredibly complex issue, and that's made rather clear by the headline that I read. There's so many different ways you could analyze this and who's bears the brunt of the responsibility or fault, and to frame it in the context that it's due to the greed of the house that he's. I guess that's one way to look at it. Anyway, the next is an interview with Zoom CEO that I couldn't care less about. So then we go on. There's a whole bunch of fundraisings as usual. Tractor maker John Deere, which plans self-driving tractors later this year, predicts that 10% of its revenue will come from software fees by the end of the decade. Bloomberg says insider intelligence U.S. online sales will rise about 9% to $1 trillion later this year, the first single-digit year-over-year growth. Because it's just less than 10%, it's 9.4%. So this is another example of journalism looking for any signs that tech isn't, amazing. And so U.S. online sales will rise just 9.4% to $1 trillion. It's the first single digit, meaning not above 10% year over year growth. Oh, right. Like we're supposed to be angry that it's only growing 9.4%, that the U.S. online sales was only growing 9.4%. I understand journalists didn't go to business school. They went to journalism school. And therein is the problem. Let me break it down for you one more time, my dear journalism friends. Here's what you missed in Business 101. As you grow 20% every year, it becomes nearly impossible to sustain that for 20 years because you hit the event horizon of growth. And you can't grow. Eventually, you take over the entire U.S. sales. There's only so many people in America, and they only have so many dollars to spend. And at some point, once you've got all of it, you're not going to be able to keep growing. You'll have all of it. They're getting close to that point. So this growth is naturally going to start slowing down now that market is fully mature. I hope that makes sense. Just like the streaming subscription services, those are going to slow down too because everybody has them now. Online, the digitization of online sales is naturally at some point going to have to slow down. It's still growing very well at 9.5%, but there's very few people left to buy stuff online.
It's a napkin math
Ben, I don't think we can hear you.
And you're in average.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, try again, Ben.
Oh, maybe he's talking to somebody else.
It's okay. So BB just found one that my dear friends, EQT Ventures in Stockholm, just closed a $2.2 billion fund for scaling European startups. And I'm very conflicted there. I'm very, very close with the team there. So congrats to my good friends at EQT. And yeah, well deserved. So the next one is from the Wall Street Journal. It says a look at the increasing efforts of device manufacturers, telecom companies, and satellite operators to connect smartphones to satellites in remote locations. Is it just me, or are we starting to read more things like this now that Starlink has actually made this a reality? And now the rest of the world is realizing, oh shit, we need to catch up to what Elon, the Pandora's box of connectivity that Elon just launched.
Well, it's an interesting reduction in infrastructure costs because you used to have cables and then towers, and now it's just a few satellites that, relatively speaking, the kind of maintenance or upkeep is much smaller than the previous two generations of technology. So definitely a leap of sorts.
It's definitely more than few satellites, several thousands, that are already up there. And then in future, the next satellite design, which larger array and the larger antennas providing the connectivity without changing the phone structure or having need of that antenna, and all around the globe, anywhere you are, over water, in mountain, desert, the connectivity and the possibilities. Think of the future where you can connect with the satellites, through satellites, to internet anywhere you are, plus the FSD or the cars, robo taxis in future, and the use cases through satellite-based signals, and the improvement that is happening every time these satellites are launched. So it's not like the one design that's being used. It's just R&D, all the research and development that's done, and improvement in this form of connectivity. It's just amazing. I just saw the launch of Falcon 9 for the 14th time. That rocket was supposed to just go for 10 times, but carrying the satellite. Yeah, you're right, Tyler. World is kind of catching up to this new way.
Tyler, I have a question.
Sure.
So Apple actually struck an exclusive deal with this company called Global Star, right? That they are going to use up 85% of the company's network capacity, and on top of that, I think Apple is also going to pay 95% of the new infrastructure that's going to be installed for the use of their device. And so, do you see a likelihood that Apple may jolly well just buy over this company eventually,
Say
Global
the
Star?
question again.
I mean, Apple has an exclusive deal with this company, this satellite company called Global Star, right?
Yeah.
And they are going to use up 85% of their capacity, the network
Right.
capacity. And at the same time, Apple is going to pay for pay 95% of the cost to actually add on new infrastructure for the network. So
Okay.
don't you think that it is a natural cost for Apple to buy over this company eventually?
To eventually buy the company?
Yeah.
No, because I think Apple just did some very clever business school calculation
Mm-hmm.
of what features can we add to the devices that are truly novel, that are valuable features that people will actually be willing to pay for to upgrade the phones. So they just gave people an actual, that might be, that particular feature might be, it'd be interesting to see if you polled everyone who buys an iPhone 14
Mm,
tomorrow,
mm,
or is it next week? Isn't it on the 12th? They go on sale today or something? Anyway, um, which, for what reason are you purchasing the phone? I would love to know what
mm,
percent of people mention the satellite connectivity. I bet you it's not insignificant.
mm,
And if you, if it turns out that it was, um, I don't know, 20%, 10%, call it 15%. 15% of the iPhone sales for iPhone 14 are that's a new feature they never had previously. Those are potentially new buyers buying into the Apple ecosystem, which they'll monetize 3, 4, 5x when they get the watch and the earbuds in the laptop. So this is similarly why they're adding the crash detection and these other improved sleep monitors and improved period tracking and these features that um, are kind of, you know, special use cases that are truly valuable. I think it's quite valuable to have the comfort, the comfort of knowing you can, get a message anytime, wherever, how far, if you're lost or whatever. And they made the commercials to prove it. They literally laid bare the tragic scenarios, which is rather unconventional for app commercials. Historically, they don't normally get into the grim side of life. They're usually so ridiculously upbeat. But in this case, they really do want to show you just how bad shit's going to be if you don't upgrade to an iPhone 14.
So, if I may,
Yeah.
to Cheryl's question about Global Star, and it was funny hearing that name because if I remember correctly, Global Star is an offshoot of Loral, which is an offshoot of, well, anyways, I think it came out of the original like Ford Aerospace, and these are the original like Silicon Valley companies that started the this entire valley or this entire place. And they've been putting satellites in the sky for, if I mean, Global Star for 30 years, but Loral and companies before them for 50, 60 years. They're the ones that have launched, the satellites that monitor the weather and everything else. So the fact that we're now concentrating on telecommunications and satellites in low Earth orbit, I mean, that's to Aram's point and your point earlier, Tyler. I think all of these organizations have been, I don't know if it was a space race is the funny way to put it, but they've been all working up to that same, to this date, to this time, because they learn off of each other every time they launch, a rocket or they launch a satellite into space to try and figure out how do they even get there, because not all launches, as we know, now that we've all been watching these, make it. And to finally get to a place where they can have that many in the sky, and then we can actually start to rely on these technologies, because as we know, those of us who use cell phones and rely on our cell phones, 20 years ago it was not very reliable, and we still have this huge gap in the population globally that has no coverage or very spotty coverage, and satellite really is the only way that we're going to get coverage for all. So I think we're going to have to lean on that heavily, unless we're going to continue to. And I had a conversation yesterday with somebody in Redding, California, which is very far north where the fires are happening and stuff, about how they haven't even adopted 5G simply because people are still protesting whether or not you can put a tower near a tree or near this or whatever. Satellites are kind of where we have to go, simply because there's so many people so fearful of technology, and or the infrastructure that we put on the ground is causing harm to the environment. Not sure what satellites do or don't do, but somebody smarter than me might be able to explain. Thanks.
It's
I
a
think
very good
with the
point.
satellite.
Now,
Oh,
just
sorry,
one
Aaron.
more
Go ahead.
point. Sorry, Ben. The environmental changes also. Sorry, environmental changes are also a huge impediment, because once you need to lay down the infrastructure, and if there is flooding that's happening, you can see extreme temperatures related issues, or any earth-based, environment-based disaster, the signals are lost because the pole fall down or whatever. Satellite is going to exclude these kind of issues. Yes, there are some other issues related with satellite-based internet usage, but the future improvements are going to eradicate those issues. But my point, another point that I wanted to make, that Apple is getting in Garmin's market space, Polar's market space, these special used phones and watches that were like a cornerstone for people with a specialized use scenario. Apple watch, and maybe not as good as Garmin as of yet, but in future could take over that market with the combination of Starlink's satellite, because I read another news article about Elon Musk encouraging Apple to do a partnership with them, a global star, and there are several other satellite companies. They're all kind of working in it together, and this race towards space domination is way on its way, and US has invested a lot of money to increase the space tourism or space exploration, and a lot of the future based long duration mission that would require this communication to be very readily available at all different locations. So yes, the race is already ongoing, but I see that our companies, like US companies, are kind of way ahead. So I just wanted to share that because there was a study yesterday I read. I'm not going to go into the detail of how much money is being invested in the space industry right now.
Well, it's better that we spend money on racing to space instead of racing to build bombs and kill each other. So, because it serves the war machine, I think it's a better thing. So, at least I welcomed the new space race. It's nice to see.
And Aaron, may I ask why Apple this time didn't choose to cooperate with Starlink directly? Because right now the Global Star only have around 24 satellites, and compared with Starlink's more than 50,000, 50,000.
Slowly they are getting there, BB. You will see in future. I mean, I'm purely optimistic because there is no comparison between the coverage and the service Starlink provides with the future release of those satellite that are, one of them already deployed yesterday, but I would see that Apple and other companies will also
Aaron, I
make
think BB's question is why is Apple not collaborating with Starlink and chose Global Star over Starlink?
that's Apple's own decision, but in future they will change, I'm sure.
Well,
They
the
asked.
mate
Elon said they had a meeting about it.
Yeah, Ilan
just
had a meeting already with Apple about it.
So that's why I raised the question: is there a possibility that Apple, if things go well, they may consider to just easily buy over Global Star,
I
since
don't
you're
think
going to
so
invest
because
so much on
Because
it? Yeah.
they're not, Apple is not going for the satellite or communication in space. Their market is here. They may advance in the health market. Yes, that was another point based on these new, emergency services, which may require Earth-based centers. If a 911 kind of situation services are not available, I did hear that they may go in the health industry, but they are not aiming for space communication industry. That's not in their business plan as of yet. I'm not sure about future.
So
It's not going
why
to be
I
beneficial.
feel so confused because if Apple is not going to aim for this satellite field, so why like didn't choose the biggest industry company?
Well, the reason could be investment, their own, who knows what contracts they have from long time ago.
Cheryl, I think the short answer to your question is because they can get everything they want in terms of sales by this partnership that where they have to invest relatively nothing rather than do something that would be rather resource intensive and time consuming and laborious. They get everything they want just by this partnership. There's no need to own the company at this point. They're going to get the bump in the iPhone sales because they've got the feature because they did this partnership.
Mhm. But I also read
So
somewhere that they're
couple of
going to fork out 95% of the cost of the new satellites. If Global Star is going to install new ones, they are going to Apple is going to pay 95% of the cost. Okay, I'll send you the article
Ben?
that I read. So that's why it puzzled me. They're going to
Yes,
do
I
this,
also saw that,
and
Apple will cover most of the
and
fee.
and and because of this deal, right? It is very difficult for Global Star to do any other deal with any hardware company. So Apple almost have exclusivity to this. So if Apple going to teach them in the future, this company probably will be gone.
Ben, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments and a question. The comments would be, I'm pretty sure that technically, back to the iPhone 12 could do this satellite communication. It's just, obviously they want to sell new iPhones, but it's fair enough. But I'm pretty sure that you only need a 4G chip to do it. The second comment was, I'm pretty sure that Starlink will never be able to serve cities with any reasonable bandwidth at all, because that's just not how it works. It's designed, and I'm just double checking that with my satellite engineer on my back channel, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So don't think it's going to suddenly replace 5G in the cities. But it's amazing, the coverage across the globe. And then the question was, I have no clue what the carbon impact of launching satellites versus cell towers is. As long as it's in the same order of magnitude or two, it doesn't really matter, because it's not a big deal anyway overall. But if it was like a 10,000 times more carbon into the atmosphere, into the environment, then it could be a concern. But I have no clue what it is. So if anybody has any idea how you'd find out that, I'd be interested. So that was it, really.
Okay. So now we get into the tweets, like this one from Saudamini. Actually, hold that. We'll go to this one from Kyle Bass. It says, I'll retweet it now, and Cheryl will pin the Twitter account at the top of the room, TNATW, where we're now in real time going to retweet these as we read them. The first one says, national security threat, China's eyes in America. This is from Gatestone Institute. Quote, every DJI drone in the skies above America is as good as a hovering Chinese spy. We must pass the American Security Drone Act, the ASDA. Contact your congressional representative and your senators to push them to pass this U.S. Security Act. So is this act already written? It would be my question. I have to read that article that I just tweeted thoroughly to find out if that's actually on the table. Wouldn't surprise me at all, given the kind of grand decoupling of things that are underway with China. So the next is from BB, that Japan and China, big sources of plastic in the North Pacific garbage patch. According to a study, more than 3/4 of the giant plastic mass found between Hawaii and California comes from the fishing industry, says researchers. And that's from South China Morning Post. Thank you, BB. And then Saudamini has one, speaking of the seas and drones. So we get to combine the last two into this one. Pentagon combines drones and AIs to police the Gulf region. Iran's recent seizure of an unmanned autonomous U.S. Navy boat shines a light on a pioneering Pentagon program to develop networks of air, surface, and underwater drones for policing the Gulf region, meshing their surveillance with artificial intelligence. Spies in the sky, as the last article said. Very interesting. By the way, keep your eyes on the one of the reasons the Gulf is so interesting is because the Gulf region has a lot of the world's oil, but it also has one of the world's straits, the Strait of Hormuz, and also what's the other one coming from the one that got blocked recently from the Mediterranean, where that Evergreen tanker was. What was that one?
The Suez Canal, I think you're talking
Suez.
about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So when you have these straits and canals, like the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, or the Straits of Malacca, Straits of Hormuz, Bosphorus. These are incredibly critical points for geopolitical strategy, and things. We're in a supply chain. We're in the stage of the game where we start screwing with each other's supply chains and see who can tolerate it the longest. And these straits will likely come into play. And watch any news about any of those very closely, because your own food and water and energy supply could be very directly affected. And the idea that the U.S. is going to have unmanned drone ships, cruising around the Straits of Hormuz, and drones flying in the
Tyler,
area. Which, yeah,
I just not too snide away, but quickly, our Skynet's better than your not even Skynet.
yeah. Vice Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command, called the Iranian actions flagrant, unwanted, and inconsistent with the behavior of professional maritime force. U.S. forces will continue to fly, sail, and operate anywhere international law allows. 2 U.S. Navy destroyers and helicopters. Here it was. The U.S. program operates numerous unmanned surface vessels, which are called USVs, in the waters around the Arabian Peninsula, gathering data and images to be beamed back to collection centers in the Gulf. The program operated without incident until Iranian forces tried to grab 3 7-meter sail drone USVs in 2 incidences just earlier this month, 2 weeks ago. In the first, a ship of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps hooked a line to a sail drone in the Gulf and began towing it away, only releasing it when a U.S. Navy patrol boat and helicopter sped to the scene. In the second instance, a Iranian destroyer picked up 2 sail drones in the Red Sea, hoisting them aboard. 2 U.S. Navy destroyers and helicopters quickly descended. Again, don't fuck with Uncle Sam. And persuaded the Iranians to give them up the next day, in exchange for some Kit Kat bars. But only after stripping cameras from them. According to the U.S. military, the Iranians said the USVs were in international shipping lanes and were picked up to prevent possible accidents. The U.S. Navy said the USVs were operating well outside of the shipping lanes and unarmed.
That's like that
Now,
one time they messed with the GPS and the drone drifted into Iranian airspace. I guess that was the same thing. We just don't want a collision.
yeah, these things have the potential to escalate, and these geographies are particularly sensitive. Powder kegs, tinder boxes, all rolled into one, oil-soaked tinder boxes. So watch out when you start combining tech and these types of geographies. Anyway, the next is from BB, that Tata, arguably one of India's biggest conglomerates. Let me finish the headline. Tata, India's top conglomerate, in talks to make iPhones with Taiwanese manufacturer Wistron. The pact could make Tata the first Indian company to build iPhones, which are currently mainly assembled by Taiwanese manufacturers like Foxconn. I wonder why Apple's looking to make iPhones with Tata outside of mainland China, out of Shenzhen, where they've been built since the first iPhone. And then, yeah, so we covered the Saudamini's one about the Pentagon in the Gulf. Did anyone else have a headline they want to make sure we covered today? There's the California gas-powered car ban, which takes effect in 2035. Saudamini found a robot that draws circles with conductive ink. And energy text averted possible California power cuts. Residents of California received a text message to shut down non-essential power. California, maybe you've heard of it. Emergency text. The power grid is so incapable that they decided, what can we do to prevent the grid from failing? Oh, I know. Can't we get everybody's phone numbers from the mobile carriers? Yes, we can. Can't we send out an emergency message to everyone to let them know to turn off their air conditioners so that we don't blow the whole grid? But we don't really have a choice, do we? Well, let's go ahead and do it. Hey,
So,
Bob, this is John over here at the power grid. Listen, can you get me everybody's cell phone numbers? What do you mean, everybody, Bob? Well, just what I mean. I need to send. Can you help me send a message to everybody? What do you mean, everybody? I mean, everybody with a phone. I need to let them know to stop using power because we're going to blow the grid down here, Bob. And that's why you might want to consider that little conversation between Bob and Carl might encourage you to take control of your own energy supply because that's not happening in some third world country. That's happening in a place called California. You were saying.
oh, sorry. Little funny thing happened in the middle of the Apple announcement. A Flex alert went out, and people's iPhones started making noise, and they thought it was part of the Apple event, but it was actually a Flex alert. For those of you who don't know, California, the majority of the state, at least the northern part, we were experiencing record heat wave last week. Like, I live in San Mateo, which is the peninsula of the San Francisco Bay Area. It was 103 degrees most every day last week. San Jose and parts of the Silicon Valley were 113. The Inland Valley, which is like the state capital, I think was 117. And then Southern California was just about as bad. So exactly what you're saying, but we were getting, our phones were going off on a regular basis to that exact point. And they use the emergency system just like there's a hurricane or there's an earthquake or whatever to alert everybody to what's going on, and that we need to like turn off our power or turn off our lights or do whatever. It's pretty bad.
Take control of your water, food, and energy. It's bad enough when it's your power. So in this case, these alerts are telling you stop using power. We don't have enough power. For California, it not having power for a few hours is certainly an inconvenience. When it's your food, you have backup plans because it's rarely all the food all at once. Water is quite unique because when you run out of water, there is no backup plan and you're screwed. You're thoroughly, thoroughly screwed. And what the case I would like to make for you today is that the state has already shown how inept it is at managing power and COVID. And I can assure you the water stress is coming in a very, very big way. Those temperatures that were just being shared, and I happen to have been in Millbrae last week myself and got to experience it firsthand. And by the way, the state of California is praying that they get the rain in this storm that was just coming through, like they did last year, and we're already back up Schitt's Creek without any water to row out of. We're out of what used to be Schitt Creek. The Schitt Creek has gone dry, and it's kind of hard to row out of it. They did get record rains last rain season, at the end of the year. Will they get them again this year? We will find out. And if they don't, oh boy, are you screwed next year. You're screwed this year, and you had record rains recently. So what happens when you get the year that doesn't bring record rains, which is quite often? So this year you might not get the rains like you did last year, and then you're going to be double, double, double screwed. You're going to turn into an extension of Burning Man, is what you're going to turn into. The whole state of California will become one massive Burning Man event.
So as the time
So
scale without water increases, the chances of it happening drop rapidly, I reckon. So, the chances of 3 days without water from your mains is pretty high, very high, I would say, in the next 5 years. The chances of 3 weeks is lower, 3 months is lower, and so forth. So, I would certainly urge people to have at least a few days, preferably weeks. I mean, I'm pushing to 3 years, but do what you can, right? 3 days is easy. 5 liters, 1 gallon per person per day. Water bottles stored somewhere cool and dark. Use them on a first in, first out basis. Pretty simple. Buy them slowly, don't buy them all in one go, so we don't want to run on the shops. And just have some resilience, at least 3 days. And if you want to know about longer time frames, then, well, check the chat or come to our rooms or whatever.
Hey
okay, I
Tyler,
got a couple.
over the
Yes,
weekend, Evan shared a tweet, right, about this is it Mississippi Jackson? The water coming out from the tap is actually brown, looks like coffee.
yeah,
Is that real or is that fake?
yeah. No, that's real. Jackson, Mississippi is the capital of Mississippi, and they've run out of water.
So
And
it's
when you get
coffee on the tap now.
no,
It's
it's
brown
sludge
water.
from the bottom of the water supply. This
Oh,
happened in Austin, Texas, a few years ago, as David can tell you. The water supply got so low that it became they get down to the bottom of the barrel of the reservoir, and it's a bit muddy down there. And then they start off by telling you don't drink it and boil it if you're going to use it, and it's not pleasant.
but I
It's
thought
really not
Jackson
pleasant.
has a flooding issue at the moment, Mississippi.
Yes, here's another inherent conundrum, which is places that are flooding. A lot of places are flooding a lot more. Nowhere more so than Pakistan at the moment.
Hmm.
And part of the reason for that is the during a drought, the land becomes less able to absorb moisture. So the longer the droughts go on for, the less capable the land is of absorbing the rain that comes, and then you get floods. So when you get droughts, which we're having, and then historically large deluge of water, which we're having, and you combine those two things, you get floods. You don't get, wet ground. You get the dry ground resisting the new incredible intense amounts of rain and making floods. And so it's not as good of a thing as you would hope. Um, Anywho, Katerina just found two interesting tweets. The first one is that it says to be careful about the blue lights coming from your devices because now, according to Oregon State University, blue light exposure increases your biological age. So maybe turn off the blue light on your devices
Yeah,
unless you want to read
Ben has a
more
good
quickly.
suggestion about this night shift on the iPhone. So since you have mentioned that my phone is 24-hour on night shift mode now. That will cut off the most of the blue light.
There we go.
Yeah, and just to
And then
balance it out with some red light, there was that red light study earlier this year that showed you can actually have some
improve.
macular recovery or regeneration if you used red light therapy at the 670 nanometer range for about 3 minutes every day before I think it was 8 a.m. So from blue to red. There you go.
Exposure to red light waves early in the morning is supposed to help your vision and prevent kind of decay of your vision. South
Um,
Korea's bill on phone recording ban creates furor. Recorded clips of conversations have often made headlines in cases where housekeepers or drivers of the rich and powerful revealed their boss's verbal abuse. As anyone who's watched Korean dramas knows. And so a bill to ban recordings, it's going to get a lot of people upset. And then, real quickly, rheumatoid arthritis could be treated by eating probiotic bacteria. Experiments in rats hint that an immune suppressing drug that could be taken by eating a probiotic may relieve symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. Fantastic.
I've
Go
been
ahead.
doing that for the past 5 years, actually. The autoimmune diseases, including rheumatoid arthritis and many others, have great improvement when you take care of your gut bacteria, optimize the variation and the different colonies of gut bacteria, the beneficial one.
And the studies, there were studies in the past, but now they are actually, gaining momentum and attention of the main healthcare system, that our gut and the gut bacteria diversity is related to so many autoimmune conditions, which are all preventable, which are all treatable without these NSAID medication. Instead of immune modulating, what you do is you just optimize your gut health and the gut bacteria health. And that adds to the blue light exposure, because the blue light exposure not only disrupts your sleep wake cycle, it also disrupts your stress hormones, and combination of this and a lot more, in your internal regulatory cycles affect your biological age, which kind of cause the telomere shortening in your cell, and the damage that happens because of the oxygen free radical injury that is the cause of immunosenescence or your cellular aging, can be prevented by sleeping early, sleeping well throughout the day, throughout the night, not sleeping during the day, and waking up in the morning and watching sunrise, hence the natural exposure to light, even if there is cloudy sky. And all these normal natural ways of living and your daily routine can make a huge impact and increase your distance, or the gap between your biological and chronological age, reversing aging, because aging is also kind of a process that is reversible, or can be managed by these natural ways of prevention. And the yellow glasses that you can use to prevent the blue light from your phone and computers, and as soon as the sun goes down, you turn off or lower down all the lights in your house, and how that is connected to your different hormonal and neurotransmitters in preventing these age-related or other autoimmune conditions. It's a huge, huge field. I'm just glad that they are finally catching up.
Okay. Vodafone working on satellite tech that can locate IoT devices within centimeters, from Saudamini. And who had this one? Katarina has one about a new technology detecting deadly landmines with 92% accuracy could help Ukraine locate landmines with drones with high degree of accuracy. That's freaking awesome sauce right there. Using drones to find landmines with high accuracy. And I think that gets us towards the end of today's. Did anyone have one they want to share now that we're approaching the 2 hour mark?
There was another tweet in terms of how the brains of patients with different health, like psychological health conditions, are different. This is the first time that actually MRI-based studies are pointing towards a structural difference into the brain, and showing that there are a couple of different gyri and sulci in the patients who are suffering from very severe chronic mental illnesses, showing that there is a genetic component, and also showing that the normal progression of maturity of the neuronal cells and the movement from the base of the brain and accumulation at the top layer is not completely done in these patients, and the ascension of these neurons are halted, creating another circle of gray matter instead of just the one at the top of your brain, which is phenomenal and groundbreaking, because not only previously mental illnesses were disregarded as something in your head, now coming to this point that there is genetic components involved, and there is proof of structural changes in the brain, would increase the diagnostic procedures and early detection, and also genetic based solution or treatment would be helpful, especially patient with schizophrenia or severe mental illnesses. So that was fascinating. I have that article on my Twitter. I'll link it to TNATW.
Oh, thank you so much. That's fascinating, Aram. I was thinking, what is your guys' reaction? I don't know, maybe it was discussed of a disappearance of SIM tray in the 14 lineup in the United States in Apple devices. I just wondered what you guys think, and because my reaction is that as you were talking about the satellite connection, which I think is fascinating, I think that that can actually slow sales in America, and I wondered if you agree with me.
What's your perspective again?
So
Well, I think
basically,
Kareem's asking about the removal of the SIM tray in the iPhones.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean they're technically not
No,
necessary, but there's a usability
right,
question about taking them away.
right. I think they're going to. Apple is leveraging their clout on the U.S. carriers to force the eSIM issue in the U.S., and then by extension, that's going to cascade globally because Apple and wants it to happen. The users will benefit, and the cell phone companies have been reluctantly dragging their feet, but I think Apple's forcing the issue.
why do you think that users would benefit? I think that it takes away users' ability to switch between the carriers, especially
It
when
doesn't.
they're traveling.
No, it doesn't. I travel between Thailand and Sweden every month with different SIMs, and I have to ask the flight crew to use their badge to poke the little SIM tray on my phone to swap the SIM card that's in my wallet while I'm landing and filling out the immigration card. If I had eSIMs, then when I arrive, it would detect automatically, the phone would know automatically if I had already subscribed to an eSIM. If I hadn't subscribed to an eSIM, I would be met with a greeting that says, "Hello, you just arrived in Sweden. Here are 5 different providers of data. Which one are you interested in?" I click one, and then it would tell me all the different pricing options for data and calls or whatever. Um, because sometimes I forget my Swedish SIM card at home in Thailand. Then I have to go to the 7-Eleven, or what in Sweden is called Pressbyrån, and go into the shop and purchase a new SIM card for about $10, and then pick one of the data plans. And they give me a code, and then I enter the code on the phone, and that puts the data on the card. But that's a half hour after the plane's landed. With the eSIM, you'll be able to sign up for an eSIM very seamlessly. It'll just charge it right to your Apple Pay or whatever uh, as soon as there's cell signal inside the airplane. So if you go to a new country that you've never been to before, you land in Thailand, in your case, for example, when you land here, you'll be greeted by AIS, True Mobile, and DTAC as to the plan options that they have while you're still inside the airplane, and you can pick which one you want and pay for it, you know, instantly, and you'll be able to get your email before you get off the plane.
I'm not
Where today
against.
you
No, I'm
yeah,
not against
but
adding new abilities as giving people eSIM as option, and at the same time allowing them to choose if they want an eSIM or hardware SIM. But it's
right,
taking away the feature from people who, let's say, if I have two devices, like right now I am on a Z Fold, which is actually something that I really wanted to discuss with the tech community as well at some point, maybe not today when we will try to close the room, but the foldables are fascinating, but they are still not perfect technology. There are still issues with it. And I was actually about to buy 14 Pro, not 14 Pro Max, but just 14 Pro as my backup device. And I got cold feet after hearing about the SIM thing, because that would not allow me to switch between my two devices, simming, seamlessly.
you're right.
And I
You're
would.
right about that. You're totally right about that. This is an Apple move to create Apple lock-in. They claim that they're making it easy to switch between devices. but they're gonna give the example of two iPhones. This is one of the burning questions that we're gonna find out next week when these devices come out, is how challenging is it? How much time? How many steps does it take to transfer an eSIM from an iPhone to an Android? And
Especially that.
Apple,
You
Sorry.
can bet it will be easier to go one way than the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what really gets me every time I'm trying to switch to Apple. Every time I'm like, I have iPad Pro and I love it as a standalone device. But every time I'm trying to get into ecosystem, there's some point or other that keeps me away from it, and usually it's just this narrow-mindedness of of those devices being so limiting. And I wonder how much they shooting themselves in the leg for this type of, let's say, more power users, or users that are implementers or early implementers of different techs that just don't feel that they want to be locked in the system.
Join us in the rabbit hole, Miriam. It's okay. It's not too bad in here.
Okay, anyway, I
The
done my
majority of their
ranting.
customers are not going to care. I mean, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, like
yeah, they're going to see.
Exactly.
Apple
Apple is
actually
such a
swap out
huge
the SIM
company.
cards.
But
Sorry, go
Mariam, I
ahead.
think you have options because only the US one is eSIM only. The other countries you still have an options of the tray. Just get it from Canada.
Canada again.
Yeah.
You can buy a Canadian phone. That's true. You can do
And
that.
right now, iPhone provides one original SIM card slot, and you can at the same time use eSIM. So actually, you can try if you like it or not. But at Canada, yeah, we have eSIM only in the future.
I think it's like Apple's like, look, we got rid of the $35 SIM activation fee. Now there's a 500-foot concrete wall separating you from the garden, right? I think that's kind of the long-term game here.
Oh, I doubt that fee's gone. AT&T and T and those guys are going to think it's just they're going to label it something else. Some other, you know.
Some other hidden fee.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to take that money away. I will tell you, though, that Apple's advancements, I mean, let's remember going back before the iPhone when the cell companies are the ones that controlled your whole device life. So you were locked into AT&T. You had to buy the phone from them. You couldn't buy an unlocked phone. Apple broke that monopoly.
Okay, we're going to
Exactly.
end it there and do it
Such
again
a huge,
tomorrow.
such a huge company for a reason.
Actually, it's only
Okay.
US that's locked, maybe Japan, but most of the other countries is always unlocked. By the way, Ben has a room coming up in 5 minutes of